answers are inside. Yeah, I am a 21st century superhuman. Now is the time. Come on everyone, let's celebrate. We are the children of the sun. I can see it when I look into your eyes. We are the same, and we are light, yeah, we are one. Here now, hear my ancient prayer and sing along. We are awakening as one. And we can make a difference. Yeah, we can be the change it takes to make the world a lot more fun. But if you're feeling kinda down and you need some inspiration to remember who you are, oh, now, child, please don't frown. You can choose a new vibration, and these words can take you far. I am a 21st century superhuman.
Hello, welcome to another exciting episode of Bridge to Paradise, the features show. And today we have one of our favorite super friends with us. We have the founder, and I mean, he probably wouldn't like to call himself a leader, but he is the leader of Evolved Ministry, which is one of our favorite energy schools because they focus on love, which if you're following us, you know is one of our favorite topics. So, Cary, do you want to introduce our guest?
Well, I would love to catch the ball from you and introduce him a little bit, and then we'll get Ken to introduce him more because they're really great compadres. Yeah, I mean, God, where do we start? I just want to say, here we are. We're talking about 21st century superhuman, and this is the bridge to paradise, the bridge to the new earth. So we are in the process of waking up to who we truly are. We're in for thousands of years, our superpowers have been suppressed, and we literally are superhumans. We literally have these capabilities that have been suppressed by superstition, and the overbearing religious doctrines and all these things that didn't want the slave species to be too smart, because if we were too smart, we'd figure it out and get the world going the right direction. So that's what we're doing now. And I think there are many, many people who are waking up, especially younger generations, but really all generations are starting to wake up to these abilities that we have, a lot of individuals. And so Michael Grubb happened to jump into this dimension and founded Evolved Ministry and Evolved University so that he could, because he happened to come in with a lot of these skills awakened, and he can tell us his story about that. And so what he's doing is teaching people to access these abilities, or a lot of people who are waking up to the abilities are going to him and going, hey man, what do I do with this? And how do I activate it more? And what do I do with it? And so my meeting of Ken this past summer, randomly, because he messaged me on Facebook, our great meeting place of this global community right now. I mean, what a cool tool we have just in being able to be connected with each other worldwide. And I started seeing Ken's videos on telekinesis and activating the wind and all this stuff. And then, and so I started reposting his videos, and then he messaged me, and he was like, he saw me with like, 21st century superhuman. So he messaged me and he said, hey, I'm in the town right next door to you. We should get together. And I was thinking, oh man, I don't want to get together with somebody I haven't met on Facebook, but I called all my posse up and I said, hey, you guys, this is the guy that can move the wind through the trees. Do you want to meet him? And so we all went and met him at a park, and he immediately started teaching us how to do it too. And so that is what is so cool and exciting, is that these guys have accessed their superpowers, we'll call it that. And we like to call them Jedis, although they don't like us to call them that. But just to say, this is something all of us can access. But I worked with Tony Robbins for many years, put him on stage in Cobo Hall and different places in the Midwest in the early 80s, doing firewalks, and did a bunch of fire walks with him and broke boards with my bare hands and all of that. And Tony used to say, when you duplicate the physiology and the mental syntax of someone who has already developed the skill to do something supernatural, so to speak, you can access the same part of your brain instantly. And it's why people sit at the feet of masters. It's why we do, so it's actually a science called modeling, where we get around someone who's already tapped into a skill, and we then are able to do that thing ourselves quicker. So anyway, Ken, why don't you go ahead and do an intro for Mike, because you can probably do it better than I can, but that's kind of an intro to us being here together in this process. And what we're looking at is 21st Century Superhuman Skills. From my book, 21st Century Superhuman, which is available on Amazon, and our website, 21stcenturysuperhuman.com, in construction right now, but a lot of cool stuff coming soon. So go ahead, my friend.
Well, Mike is one of my good friends and brothers. I would consider him like part of my soul family for sure. He's an excellent guy based in love. I mean, that's the purest and simple, way to put it. And his techniques are profound. So that's all. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Michael Grubb.
Well, hello, everyone. So obviously there's going to be some questions about how I came across all this. And
yeah, I think that would be great. If you would just share with us kind of your awakening process and your history a little bit and how you got to where you are now. I think that'd be really good for people to hear.
Okay. Well, make sure this is in front here. What really happened, it started off in early childhood. And my mother knew that I was prone to certain things, but most of the stuff that I was prone, she was actually bringing me up in the Christian religion at that time. Okay. So I was African American Methodist Episcopal. And so you're talking like a strict religion. It's not as strict to say like the Pentecostals, but it's pretty strict. And it was, to her, when she saw all these abilities developing, it was okay that I was using them for the Christian religion, because then, you can say that I was a healer, or they could say that I was this, or they could say that I was that. But eventually, what happened is of course, what ended up working with me was not the Christian religion. The entire time that I was growing up, I had a big question mark over my head as to why.
And as we've said before, Ken grew up similarly to you. So we've said that, we've shared that on the show before. And so it's kind of a neat history you guys have.
Yeah, there's a lot of parallels there. And I noticed that a lot of people who have come across this, and given the fact that we are in America and I do live in the Bible Belt, more than likely, we're going to come across some pretty heavy Christian religion. One second. Excuse me. And so I was brought up that way, but what ended up started happening is as a child, I was having all sorts of experiences. It's kind of difficult to really put a name or a label on it, but we'll just say that there was a lot of, you could call quote unquote spiritual energies. I don't even really typically like to use the term spirituality anymore, because I believe that we are just what we are. And so when I use the term spiritual, it almost sounds generic to me anymore. But I was experiencing a whole lot of let's just say, as a child, upgrades that I didn't know what to do with. And so
when you say an upgrade, how did that happen?
I would say, okay, I'll tell you a brief story. I used to have what was known as imaginary friend, what we all call an imaginary friend. Okay. Except mine was a little bit more physical, maybe say so, than others. I couldn't tell whether or not someone else's imaginary friend had any more physicality than mine, so that's whatever. Anyway, but I had this friend named Buck. To my eyes, he was about a 8-9 foot tall gorilla. That's what I saw, but it spoke English. And my mother would always see me out in the yard talking and playing with this particular entity, but of course she's seen me run around circles and speaking into thin air, doesn't know, And so one day she called me in from outside. Now this whole imaginary friend thing went on for about a couple of years. Okay. And so she called me inside and she asked me, she said, who are you talking to out there? And of course I said, Buck. And she knew who Buck was. She's heard it a million times. And she finally just decides to tell me on this particular day, you do know that Buck's an imaginary person, right?
Oh.
Yeah, she decided to finally pull it, the whole Santa Claus routine, Santa Claus isn't actually real. And so I sat there and looked at her. I was like, no, he's right out there. It's like, I'm positive of it. And the funny thing was, so I go back outside and I talk to Buck and I'm like, my mom says you're not even there. And Buck tells me to tell her this, really tell her that 9:00 at night tonight that I'll be here to visit the house. And so of course I was excited. I went back inside and I said, Mom, guess what? Buck's going to come and introduce himself to you. 9:00 tonight is basically like that. And my mom and my sister both started laughing hysterically. And my sister, who loved to taunt me, I mean, she stuck it there on me, and so I remember that entire day being excited. And then right coming up to around 7 or 8 o'clock or whatever, I started reminding my mom. And then at that point, she said, okay, that's enough. It's time for you to go to bed. And so she puts me to bed. I'm, of course, wanting to stay up for Buck. I probably fought it for about 10 or 15 minutes. I don't know. I end up passing out just like any kid would. Well, years later, my mother tells me the story of what really happened that night. I didn't hear it the next day, but I hear it years later. So I remember asking my mom, I was like, you remember that imaginary friend that I had named Buck? And then Mom was like, yeah. And she said, something happened with that, by the way. And she said, do you remember the day that you told me that Buck was coming up? And I said, yeah. And she goes, well, that night, I was asleep and they were downstairs. They were watching television. My dad is out of town because he's off on a business trip. He used to work for the Naval Weapons Support Center, Crane, and he did a lot of building weapons. So anyway, he was out on a business trip. 9:00 rolls around. There's a knock at the door. Doom, 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 doom. My sister looks at my mom. She gets up. She goes to the door. She looks out through the peephole. Nothing there. I don't think she really opened. From what my mom told me, she kind of slightly looked out the window or tried to maybe open the door. I can't remember exactly what it was, but nothing was there. So she went and sat back down, and then they were watching television, and then the knock came again. And at that point, Mom and Teresa ran upstairs, shut off all the lights, got into her back bedroom, and then they just stayed there. They didn't come back out. Needless to say, they didn't see Buck. It didn't, there was no intermixing and nothing really happened, but it freaked them out enough to where my mom kept that in her memory. And then she'd finally tell me about the results of what actually happened years later. And it was right at 9:00 on the nose.
That reminds me of the "you can't handle the truth" line, because imagine if they had seen Buck, if they freaked out that bad just from him knocking.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And so that was exactly. So that was the whole thing. It was like, my mom knew that there was a whole lot more to what was going on with me back then. But like I said, I think that she really thought that she was going to use it more in a Christian perspective. You know what I mean? And so what ended up happening is, like I said,
I'd love to see the Christian spin on an 8-foot gorilla.
talking gorilla. Yeah, that was something else. And so, but what's really odd is right after that experience, I don't remember much having any more experiences with Buck, period. I didn't have any more imaginary, there was no more interaction after that date. And so that was kind of strange too. Thinking about that now and just looking back on it, it's like, it just ended. It just out of nowhere just ended. And so I was having all these experiences happen, and I would tell my mom what really got it, I would call the big moment for me was when, this is hard for me to explain because of so many circumstances that went around this. My mother had a situation back with the church sometime. It was I think I was about 7 or 8 years old at the time. And there was this one particular area of the church that I was always really frightened of as a kid. And it was the sub-basement. And this is where my mom really realized that I was tapped into something. But at first, she kind of fought it. And I told her, I was like, there's this part of the church. I don't even like going into the church. I would tell my mom that because every time I would go into the church, I would begin to feel it immediately. And the
I'm getting
sub-basement.
chills with you just telling about it.
Yeah, this is a very strange situation. It truly was. And what I would do is every time I would walk into the church, I would get the feeling, and something would always lead me to the door to that sub basement, but I would never open the door to go behind it. Just wouldn't do it. And then I started having
No, I used to have dreams about something like that when I was a kid. Repeated dreams of this basement that I did not like to go into because I knew there was weird energy down there.
Exactly. Yeah. And so same thing with me and same thing with this church. And I finally, like I said, I told my mom about it, told her I didn't want to go to the church because I felt weird there, told her that I thought that there was something evil in the sub basement, but I also could feel it within the environment. So I knew that the concentration of it was in the sub basement, but I knew that it was also everywhere. So I told her religiously, I don't want to go there. I'm tired of it. It's scary to me. Well, anyway, I kept pointing to this sub basement of the church, this one door. Well, one day there was a woman who came to the church who was actually a quote unquote exorcist. Okay. And this person came from Indianapolis, and what she was doing, she was just coming down there to visit this particular church because African-American churches, whether they're Baptist or Methodist, they all pretty much work in cohesion with one another, some way, shape, form, or another. Well, this woman came down, and she was also a preacher. She walked into the door, the basement area, and immediately contacted my mom because my mom was a trustee at that time, right? And then they contacted the minister of the church. They all got together, and she said, you have a massive problem centered in the basement of your church, in the sub basement. And so they ended up doing a for real exorcism that night where my mother had to sit in on it and see what was going on. Apparently,
wow.
Exactly. Voices came out of thin air that they couldn't explain. Now, I wasn't there, so I don't know. The other thing is one of the reverends that were there became extremely fearful, and I guess he tried to run, and then all of a sudden, his voice changed, and then they had to tackle him down and then exorcise him too. So they had this situation that was jumping from point to point to point, but it was all in one night. And then finally, the woman exorcist, whatever she did, she got it out. Because the next time my mother took me into the church, there was nothing there. But it only took about a year later, and it came right back. The problem is there was a lot of hypocrisy going on in the church. And if you have a whole lot of hypocrisy going on in one centered place, that opens the doorway for anything to walk in. Well, go ahead. You're about ready to say something.
In the battleground between darkness and light over thousands of years on planet Earth. And as we talk about in 21st Century Superhuman, and I know you do at Evolved Ministry, and Ken reiterates, when we stray from unconditional love and we begin going into blame, judgment, fear, hostility, and control, we begin structuring these realities of darkness. And this is a very interesting dynamic that many are becoming aware of today. And I know people who are, they go into other dimensions to help shift this balance between darkness and light. But what's so exciting is those on the front lines on the planet right now being awake, and I know it's in the millions at this point, are getting that being aligned with love is the only way we're going to change things.
You got it.
So that's such a cool story that you have. And go ahead and then tell us how that leads into your awakening to your abilities you're playing with now.
Well, these were all things like I didn't really get a chance to hone it, obviously, as a child, because what I would do is I would just go out and do stuff and then it would happen. But it wasn't like I was practicing it as anything. It was just something that as a child, obviously my light was open and it was open to receiving a lot of frequencies, and I would just pick up on it. Well, by the time I got to my teenage years, though,
let's just pause for 1 second, Mike. So Ken, you've got a couple of kids and they just tap into their energies pretty naturally, don't they?
Yeah, really, without even trying, they can go out there and connect. You can see how they play and how the movements mimic how they play. Or, I'll even just tell my son, go ahead and, play with the wind, and he'll just put his arms up and flap his hands around it, and it will just flush out. It's they have a natural ability to do it. I'd love to see them actually I've messed with the pinwheels a little bit, the side wheel, but I'd like to see what they do under like a glass container.
Won't be long.
Really, and I think for people that have kids to realize that children are more in touch with these natural abilities that we have, and to encourage them and give them opportunities to kind of play with what's naturally coming up for them. And we'll understand this a little more as we go through this show.
Well, and as we educate the adults, we're going to help the adults help the children understand what's going on with them, because what's happening is they're just coming out with a higher default frequency. Like, it used to be the exception rather than the norm. I had similar experiences, and because I didn't know how to frame them or have a point of relativity in my head, I got kind of narcissistic as a child about it. Like I was special or something. And I have to tell you, every church I ever walked into, I felt uneasy about and felt that whole weird, like the inauthentic and dangerous energy. And that's what the whole religious construct is created for, is to facilitate a sort of catalyst for those lower vibrating energies to find carriers, essentially.
You got it.
To put forth the dark agenda. And so it's a frequency thing. And anytime I have somebody coming to me saying, I have a dark energy around me or following me, or a demon is trying to haunt me or possess me or whatever, my advice is always the same: focus on raising your frequency, because if it doesn't match, they can't mess with you. That's why Michael would get taken to the door and would never go through it. I had ghost experiences as a child, but they never frightened me because I always just knew my power. I knew they couldn't touch me. I knew that had something to do with me and how empowered I was. Just instinctively knew that as a child.
Absolutely.
You know what? This is crazy. As we're talking about this, the basement that I had repeated dreams about my entire childhood, and I did not want to go down there, and it seemed really dark and scary to me, was at my aunt and uncle's house. And my cousin, who grew up in that house, has had almost a lifelong, seriously debilitating illness, chronic, really, really, really serious. I mean, to the point where she, can barely function. That is interesting. I just started putting those two pieces together, and it might be interesting to just do some prayers around releasing those energy fields.
Absolutely.
At a distance,
Absolutely. I mean, sometimes those things are there because of, like I was saying before, people's own preferences. When you have so many hypocrisies that are going on within the church, and for me, that was what was going on. There were so many hypocrisies going on in the church that it was just facilitating that negative behavior. If you have people that are doing negative things, it opens up doorways for negative frequencies to operate. That's it. It's simple mathematics, really. So yeah, it's incredible what can happen. As a matter of fact, we can even fast forward real quick. Let's go to when Ken booked coming out to Bloomington, Indiana, the first time I had ever met Ken. Okay. And so now Ken had no idea what was going on when he first came to Bloomington, Indiana. And he had a situation where he was already dealing with the person that I dealt with in the past in terms of my previous employment. So there were some interesting things that were going on in terms of positive and negative. But when Ken comes out, so we go ahead.
Mike, let me just jump in here to say because we've talked about this history on the show before. That Ken had just gone through kind of a pretty intense wake up process, right?
He did.
Ken, right at this time when you first went to Mike's.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. It was I think within a few months of my wake up, or less than that. Yep. That I went down. There was a lot of things coming to a head.
All at once.
And when you say your wake up, can you just give a nutshell kind of what happened?
Yeah, I pretty much had a surge of energy that came into my body from practicing meditation for months at a time, and it kind of had developed my energy signature, kind of turned everything on, and I was having connections with the trees and the wind and doing stuff with clouds. And it was just kind of the beginning. And then I met Mike. So that was my kind of transition into this. So
yeah, what happened is Ken finally, he contacts me and says, I want to come out there and book and train with you. Now, keep in mind, this was right during a transition period from when I was leaving AEMI and creating Evolved Ministry. And so there was a separation thing that was happening between me and AEMI, and the situation that happened between me and the person that runs AEMI. And there's no reason even to get into that. But we'll just say that Ken also experienced some fallout as a result of what was going on between me and AEMI, because the person who was running AEMI was also trying to get Ken and pull him into their particular organization. Well, anyway, Ken comes out, and we had to kind of hash some things out there.
A cool example of how people with matching frequencies show up together.
Yeah.
You guys had matching energetic fields, so you were magnetically drawn to each other and following the path forward together.
Each one of us has a magical story of how we were brought together. I mean, there was no just bumping into each other and saying, I see you, but it was just kind of like that.
Absolutely. And so what happens is I take Ken out for a first night of training. Actually, it was probably a second night, wasn't it? It was the second night. That's right. And so we go out to the lake. Now, there's something that I do for every single student when they first come to train with me. Okay, number one, I find out if they're going to actually be a student, if they're going to stick with this for the long haul. Once they do, then I provide a thing of protection for them, because it has to happen. If you're a teacher and you're a good teacher, you know what's going on out there. And so sometimes you have to do things to provide protection for your web. That particular night,
let me just say, I've been to the lake with these guys, and it's really amazing. And also, 21st Century Superhuman, the book, is in the curriculum at Evolved Ministry, Evolved University. And when that's a whole nother story about when we met, when Ken met me and said, hey, I need to take you and introduce you to Mike. But anyway, go ahead, because it's a magical experience being at the lake with you guys.
Yes, it is. And so I had forgotten to put my mode of protection around Ken. Dumb. Now, the thing is, the reason why it's dumb that I forgot to do this is that we actually do. Now, there's some people that get to see this and some people that don't, but Ken can 100% verify that it's true. I happen to have a group of what you would call negative, best way to put them is they're agents, and they do show up, and we're talking like in full men in black suits with black sunglasses at night. They do it. It's real. We've got it on tape.
As we regularly talk about, there's a reason those movies have come out, like The Matrix, and
exactly,
because they are definitely relaying some stuff that's actually going on here.
Absolutely,
those things are real.
Yeah, I've had one experience with the Men in Black one time too, when I was getting too deep into Bohemian Grove with a Rockefeller on Facebook. We were having a conversation, and all of a sudden it got really fucking weird.
That's what happens. And so, I've had a long history with being with the black choppers. I've had a long history with the Men in Black and all that stuff. And I don't care anymore. If I can give employment to some dude and he can feed his family for him following me around and doing a bunch of, that's fine. I don't care. So, if he can take care of his family that way, who cares? Well, anyway, but these guys, they come in jacked with energy. Now, what happened is we're all out there, and Ken asks me, and I'm not for sure what we were talking about to bring this up, but he goes, is there going to be any fear programming? Okay. And I told Ken immediately, well, no, I don't do anything in regards to fear programming, because if I do anything in regards to, I can teach you how to overcome fear, but if I start opening you up to those energies so you can overcome them, then I'm really just sending them directly at you. Now, here's where things get weird. Okay. Ken asks this and opens it up. A whole bunch of vehicles. We watch them show up. Okay. We watch them come in and around, and then they park right across from where we're at. Now, Ken asks about the fear programming. I say no. And after I finish my story with him, I turn around and Ken's eyes have gone crossed. Now, Ken is now standing there and he's wobbling like this. He's sitting there wobbling back and forth. Me and Daniel are looking at him. And then next thing that happens is Ken shoots up in the air at a 45-degree angle. 45-degree angle, shoots up into the air, hits a tree, falls from the tree, okay, hits his head on the ground, and he is knocked out. We're talking out. He's twitching on the ground, okay? At this exact point, this very exact point, all of the cars turn on at once. The motorcycles turn on at once. Every single car that came in, they peel out that very second that he hits the ground, okay?
Yeah,
Which
they were all motorcycle. They were Harley Davidson motorcycles.
No.
They were motorcycles for sure, but I sensed they were Harleys because I could literally feel them in my body. It was wild.
And there was a couple of cars that had come in with them too, but yes, there were definitely motorcycles there. And so
Now, are we talking literally physical or etheric?
no, these are physical motorcycles. Physical
Okay.
motorcycles, okay? And so the thing that was really amazing was like I said, as soon as I had answered that question, it was the fear question. That was the only time that this had happened. And like I said, we watched Ken's whole body, and he weighs what? How much do you weigh?
165.
165, get thrown like a rag doll 10 feet into the air, hit a tree, hit the ground. And then what ends up happening at that point, there's a thing that I work with. They're called watchers. A lot of people may know what they are, but they always come in animals, okay? And the big massive blue heron flew in right at that second, and it starts squawking right at me. It lands right 10 feet from me, and it's yelling at me. The thing is I can hear the transfer in my head. You forgot to put your protection on your boy, okay? And then I literally said out loud to him, I said, yes, I need you to put a tracer program on the people that just left. And the second that I did it, the blue heron flew up and went right towards the direction that those people were leaving, okay? So I got my tracer program on those guys, and I ended up doing something later. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to even talk about that because it doesn't matter what occurred. We will just say that we found them and the situation got taken care of. But Ken learned a valuable lesson that night, because the first thing that he asked about once we got out into that very magical place that Cary was talking about, the first thing that he wanted to know about was there going to be fear programming. The minute that came up, that was the opening that they needed to blast Ken. It didn't hit me. It didn't hit Daniel, and it didn't hit Kyle. It hit Ken and Ken only.
Yeah, and I was resonating with that fear frequency of the story. I asked about the fear training or fear programming, and then he told a story of another student and about this thing that was manifested. And
yes.
I resonated in fear with that. The story was gripping, and it was like I manifested my own fear training, because then the agent showed up and they projected energy, and I flew and all that stuff happened.
They blasted him.
Oh, it was wild, because when I was on the ground, it felt like my insides were liquefying. It was so disturbing in my stomach, and the pressures. And I thought, I didn't know what was going to happen. And I literally had to come back to my senses as I can see those guys standing there talking like, what's going on? And, the blue heron flies, and I can see the motorcycles go across the bridge, across the lake. And I'm laying there on my side, and I can't really get up. And, I start powering. I start moving my hands over my body, and I start doing that. And I do that over and over and over. And instantly I turned that negative into the
positive.
And they remember I ended up standing up, like all like all of a sudden I was on the ground, 3-4 minutes before, and then now I'm standing.
He was a bit wobbly, but he did get up really quick. And
I did get up. It was interesting. It was like, wow. I mean, it was a blast.
I thought we were going to have to take you to the hospital. We thought we were like, oh God. It's like, I can't believe I forgot to put that protection over him. And
like, there was some protection that had to have happened from like localized, because I mean, I flew so far in the air and I hit the tree like that far from my spine. I have a huge scar on my back from it.
That was pretty nuts too.
And I hit my head like right here. There was a huge rut. I mean, the way I landed, I should have been paralyzed from it at least.
I tell you what, with the way that you landed too, is that something helped you out big time, because the root that was up out of the ground, if he had landed any other way, if he had come down, his head would have went into the root. And the root was rock solid hard, and it was as sharp as it comes, and he would have just went right into it. But he landed the exact way, of course, the universe wanted him to. And to keep him nice and alive, because that would have been a really rough situation.
You know, it's interesting. These stories always sound kind of surreal when you first start hearing them. And, you know, we talk a lot in 21st Century Superhuman about how there's different dimensions of reality. So
Absolutely.
we have the physical 3D dimension. Then we have 4D, where there's this in-between worlds where kind of souls are figuring out where they're going and what they're doing, and people are playing in darkness and people are playing in light. The dreamscape is there. And then when we start going into 5th, it takes our accelerated heart energies to get us up to 5th. So there's a lot of stuff that's going on in that 4th dimension, the transition from 3 to 5D. Wouldn't you say, Mike, that and you have a background in martial arts, right? And
really strong one, yeah.
Huge martial arts and even different types of fighting.
Absolutely.
Really skilled artisan in these areas. And wouldn't you say that you use those things now in this dimensional field that you're operating in? You know, it's always a little surreal when we start hearing about it. And that's why I wanted to bring this up, because the idea that we can operate in different dimensions, it's a huge leap to start opening up our minds and get that in our consciousness.
For sure.
I don't think anybody's gone through this life without having had those experiences where if something was just a little bit off, it would have gone a whole other direction. I mean, they might have ignored it, but that's happened to them 1,000 times in their lifetime. And those of us who have paid attention to it just get strengthened in our awareness, because we're acknowledging the field, we're acknowledging what's going on, and harmonizing with it. But I want to tell people who are listening to this story and are thinking, well, I don't know how to put a field of protection around myself, so I don't want to play with this stuff because that sounds scary. And I didn't know how to put a field of protection around myself the way that Michael Grubb knows how to do it, because I'm not in the kind of training situation that he's been through. But I can tell you, when that happened to me, I didn't get tossed, but I had the whole internal liquefaction, just this is getting really fucking uncomfortable situation going on. And I had a choice point in that moment to either go deeper into fear or to step back into my power and realize that I was the one driving that ship, and that the only reason that was happening is because I allowed that thought of, something bad's going on in the first place. So you can just like surround yourself in a bubble of light. You can start focusing on things that you love. You can just even start saying the word love out loud.
That's the most powerful word.
Yeah. And it will literally disappear, because that we live in a free will universe. They cannot fuck with you unless you let them. So if you're getting fucked with, it's your fault, not theirs.
Well, exactly. The whole thing is they can only ride the wavelength that you're allowing them to ride. If they have anything to do with you, that means you open the doorway for them to be there. I've always said this: if you're a dishonest person, okay, if you're a negative person, you can't expect for the people who are around you or the entities that contact you to be any different, because they're riding the same wavelength that you are just to be talking with you in the first place.
You are right on. And we go over and over and over that, you know, if we're going to focus in negativity about someone else, the only reason that we have those focuses is because we're still carrying around old data inside ourselves.
Yes.
Often from an unconscious level. Harvard studies say it's 95% of our energy, of our thought carried inside of us is unconscious. And it's based on thousands of generations. Again, blame, fear, hostility, judgment, and control. And when those things are surfacing and we're playing in that energy, we're going to draw in other energies that match our frequency. It is the rules of the quantum universe that we live in. And Greg Braden says, the matrix can only give us what we give it. And
That's
so
right.
Often we're feeding the matrix unconsciously. And so the 21st century superhuman journey is to kind of learn, how do we begin deleting those things from our program? You know, the things that are outside of love, the blame, fear, hostility, judgment, and control.
Well, and even the conscious aspects of it that we're feeding, we need to be more diligent about, because
Absolutely.
the catalyst for that whole experience was Mike going into a deeper story about a scary situation that he didn't get scared by because he knows his own power. But in that moment, Ken got drawn into a space. And so people are doing this all the time where they're They're focusing on, what Facebook can do to you and what this can do to you and what that can do to you. They can see you through your TV and, and I relate because I went through a period when I became aware of this stuff where I was like throwing blankets over my TV and then I realized like, wait, what was different between now and when I was unconscious of all of this stuff and
That's
just
right.
feel vulnerable whatsoever? Well, I wasn't thinking about it for one thing. It wasn't even a factor in my world. And so I'm going to go back to that space. Yeah, I'm aware of it, but I can choose whether it's going to be a factor or not. And I choose not to talk about it, not because I need protection, but because I don't want to give anybody else the space to fall into the honey trap, because most people are aware of their power.
There you go. And so that's it right there. I think if people were to focus entirely on love, and that's the problem that we have in this particular reality that we have, is that light, it accounts for both positive and negative polarity. And so we're all thrown in this space together. And given the fact that we're thrown into this space, sometimes we come across people who are either positive or negative, but really it boils down to you. It boils down to whether or not you're going to engage in the positivity or the negativity. And so you can say, oh, this person made me mad. Okay, but the fact of the matter is, it was your choice to get angry in the first place. Whether or not they made an action against you, you had a choice to do this or you had a choice to do that. And the thing is we all have that. Free will is the most powerful choice we've been given, the most powerful power. If there was any sort of power whatsoever, it's free will. A lot of people ask me about how do I cultivate aerokinesis? How do I cultivate psychokinesis, this and that? And I always say it starts with will. There is no cultivation because you've already got it. There's no such thing as cultivation. It's there. What you have to do is you have to get the encrustment off of you that prevents you from being able to access or see your own connection. And that's the biggest problem is that people are encrusted with all of their own vices.
Yeah. Michael Rice calls it removing the corrupt data. And that's essentially what we need to focus on more than building your powers or getting enlightened or doing any of these things that people are trying to achieve. Your mastery is your natural state. What you have to do is remove all the barriers that have been constructed.
That's right.
Recognizing it.
That's right.
So people are going about it mostly the wrong way, where they're trying to build a skill. And yeah, it is, you can exercise a muscle and it can be like that, but it happens a whole lot faster if you just focus on removing all the things that are not of source and not of your original divine blueprint.
That's what we pretty much do as well with Evolve Ministries. The whole first chapter that you have to go through is all about the ego. Because the thing is I realized that in the place that I taught at before, they didn't teach anything whatsoever about the ego. They didn't teach anything whatsoever. They were just basically telling you, oh, cultivate your powers, cultivate your abilities. And I saw that as being like you said, a honey trap, because
they were teaching by example with the ego, I have to tell you, because I watched some of it.
Well, you saw the fallout, didn't you? You saw some of the fallout, because I saw some of the fallout, and it showed that the person who was teaching all of this stuff ended up falling victim of their own ego. They completely fell victim of their own ego, and the next thing that happened, and
it was like a Star Wars movie.
You guys, why don't we go ahead and jump into the video of Mike and show people what telekinesis is and all these superpowers we're talking about. Should we do that a second and then come back and we can kind of go on talking about it? Let's give them a visual because it is such a cool clip.
All right.
Mike is.
Let's do it.
Yep.
human being can accomplish just about anything. Anything. The right guidance, the right instruction, people who love you. Love's a big thing. The word love carries a lot of weight when it truly means something, when it's something that is heartfelt from one person to another or one person to all, okay? When someone truly loves you and is willing to dedicate the time to help see you reach your fullest potential, that's when you know you found a good teacher. That's all I'm going to say about that. Evolve Ministry is what it is. We are who we are. Our demonstrations are genuine every time.
So we just watched Mike do some telekinesis. Ken, do you want to talk a little bit about how telekinesis works? You know, moving the wind through the, and Mike and Evolved Ministry, which Ken is part of, and which 21st Century Superhuman is part of the curriculum of, are featured in an upcoming documentary. It will be new on Netflix pretty soon, called American Jedi. So there's, you know, a lot of public notice going on about these things these days. And I don't know, Ken, do you want to explain a little bit about how telekinesis?
Well, the video we watched was a compilation video, and so it had psychokinesis. Now, psychokinesis is just the term for all of the kinesis. And
so basically, moving the wind through the tree. Basically,
that's aerokinesis.
It's aerokinesis, right?
Aerokinesis.
But psychokinesis, just like Ken said, is when you say psychokinesis, you mean telekinesis, aerokinesis, atmokinesis. It's a general term for every kinesis that exists. Go ahead, Ken.
No, yeah, he summed it up. So, I mean, that's exactly what it is. And so when you talk about telekinesis, you know, I consider that something where you're doing more indoor stuff, where either trying to move something in a sealed container, or you have a side wheel on a pin, or you're trying to or with your mind, with the magnetics.
Do you have one of those right there, Ken?
Do what?
Do you have one of those right there?
No, I don't. I was just looking. I don't have one. I actually just posted a video of me doing an indoor telekinesis in a
he just shared it. So I'm gonna email him to Biggie while y'all are talking. So on Sunday's show, we can use that as our break video. So if you're curious as to what we're talking about with this, tune in Sunday night.
So Mike, do you want to tell us how you were moving the wind through the trees up on the hill there?
Well, that's a long process, but basically you can think of it like this. Essentially, the mind, if you think of everything being frequencies, the mind operates on light. A synaptic charge, a neurosynaptic charge, is nothing more than electricity passing from one neuron to the next, right? And so if everything works...
Wow. Can we just let that settle in a minute? Can you just say that one more time? Because it's really good. I mean, we're talking all the time in 21st Century Superhuman about quantum physics. Our understanding of this world operating in a way far beyond what has ever been understood in human history, except by maybe the shamans of different, ancient cultures. And so you are literally explaining this quantum experience of being in this physical dimension. So go ahead and say that. Can you kind of like repeat that? Because that was really great summary that you were saying there.
Well, sure. The world that we live in is made of light. Einstein threw that out there and gave us that little tidbit a long time ago. E equals mc squared, or E equals mass times the speed of light squared. And so that basically tells us that everything is made of frequencies and of light. Well, if everything is made of frequencies and of light, that means, and then we also have the double slit experiment, which tells us that light in of itself will change its behavior upon observation. So if light is sentient enough to change itself and change what it's doing upon just observing it, then that means everything here that this is composed of, being composed of light, it will change its behavior just by being observed. Now, with that in mind, thought is an amazing and most powerful thing because, again, it is a neural synaptic charge. From cell to cell, we communicate through electricity. Okay, so it's an electrochemical transmission that goes from cell to cell. So the minute that you begin to think, and I think I want wind to come out of these trees, okay, well, all you have to do is just apply the idea that, number one, I'm looking at the trees, so automatically I begin to change their behavior because they're woven of light. Then, on top of changing that behavior because they're woven of light, then I have the neural synaptic charge, which tells me what my preference is. I would like to interact with these particular trees. So as that preference goes out there, the trees, of course, they're made of light. They received that electricity. They begin to buffer, what is known as buffering. The same thing that happens as on your computer. As soon as two energies collide, what happens is the energy in between starts to buffer. It's an intermix between this particular object and this particular object. So
when you say buffering, it's like loading a video on your computer.
That's right.
And this is something you can really see when you walk around. Like you can notice in your own environment when you walk into an area, maybe a new wooded area or a place of nature, you can notice how everything will start to bring up. You'll notice everything start to like just move. Even the breeze might come in real strong. So this can happen. You can start to notice these things in your environment.
Exactly. And so if we take in account the idea that science has already accounted for the idea that light is sentient enough to change from particle to wave upon observation just by my looking at it or her looking at it or anyone, then that means that it is accounted for every single thing that will ever look at it in that moment. One thing that is really interesting, and Ken has seen this for himself as well, is on our videos, we can take and play our videos. And then all we have to do is play the videos, take the video outside, and everything that I'm doing on the video will happen outside with the trees. Okay, so again.
Yeah, I've had that happen. I've played Ken's videos, like when he posts them on YouTube and all of a sudden the wind starts blowing. Because a lot of times I'm outside in my van watching them and I'm right under a big tree and the wind starts picking up. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, you called me one day and you were like, you're like, I'm watching one of your videos and it's all picking up. I'm like, yeah, that really does happen. I remember you had some storm videos that you had to destroy.
We had to destroy some videos
because these were, I mean, they would take it and turn that stuff on. So
what happened was we made some videos. I had a video of where I was getting ready. It was 2 years ago and I wanted to go home. And when I say home, I mean leave this reality. So I'm not going to tell you everything that occurred. It doesn't really matter. But we ended up filming that scenario. And it created a big, massive storm that night. When I say a massive storm, I'm talking like it was unlike anything that most people ever get to see, even during the most turbulent of hurricanes. That's the type of storm it was. Well, then we ended up by the next day, I decided, well, I want to see that film. You know, I didn't go home or anything, but I want to go ahead and see what happened and transpired. The very second that I turn on, when I hit play, a massive wall of wind hits my house. It's almost like a train that hits it the very second. Then, as it's playing, everything that I'm doing, like for instance, if I'm making lightning occur, then the lightning starts occurring out there. Then all of a sudden, and it was unfortunate, this one particular one that we did have to destroy, it literally caused a tornado to come down the center of Bloomington on 2nd Street. It almost blew out the entire roof of a school while kids were there. Okay. And it had taken out 4 trees on 2nd Street, destroyed all of these homes. I didn't even know this because I'm sitting there going, oh, I want to see if this, what's going on with the video. So then I call up Daniel Atlas, and I'm sitting there still playing with this, even though I should have probably have shut it off.
Who is part of your staff at Evolve Ministry?
Who's part of my staff.
Who's going to be on our show at some point.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I call up Daniel and I say, okay, Daniel, where are you at right now? And he goes, well, I'm at home. And I said, okay, I'm about ready to hit play on my video. And as soon as I hit play on my video, I want you to tell me what happens at your location. So I hit play, and then he starts screaming. He's like, what's going on? What's going on? I was like, what do you mean? A transformer blew right at his house the very second I hit play on the video. The next thing that happens, a massive tornado strength winds start to come in. And so he begs me to shut it off. So I hit stop, and I said, okay, now what's happening? And he goes, nothing. Everything is dead. Everything is dead silent. Same thing happened at my place. Okay. And so we did this 5 or 6 more times. And finally, Daniel was like, he's like, I think you should probably stop this because it's destroying everything. And I was like, okay. So then I go ahead and stop it. And then we end up finding out maybe about an hour or 2 later that all of this damage had happened downtown, that a tornado literally came through. And we knew that a tornado had come through, okay? Because there was a couple of things that happened off the side of that we don't even need to go into. But long story short, just like Ken said, we ended up destroying that video because every single time we hit play on that, it created the same results.
And these are our words that do these things too. I mean, while you guys were talking about when the stuff outside my windows going off, but these things play out in our everyday lives all the time. And when you're powerful and you know you're powerful, they magnify.
You got it.
You know, walking around as a sheeple having a bad thought is not going to be necessarily as powerful as somebody who's awake and aware. So for all you awake and aware people who are spotlighting all the problems all the time, you're actually more dangerous than you know.
Right on, Cami. And I've been with these guys when they've been stirring up storms, and each one will bring in different colors, and oh my God, I've got like total goosebumps just talking about it. I can't always say you and your goosebumps, It's like we start talking about this energy stuff and I can feel the currents going through me. But here's the thing, and I will say what I said when I first started being exposed to this, and I think the average person says when they start hearing about it, well, maybe you can do it, but not me, and I think that's the common like first. Hi, Ken.
I said everybody can do it.
Everybody can do it. And but it is the common first response. Maybe you, but not me. But what Cami's saying is so critical because the more awake we become, the more, the wind is blowing right outside my window right now too. So, the more awake we become, every thought that comes through our mind, we are literally holding energy and form. And as Cami said, when we're stuck in the collective, the old collective thought form, that's like an endless loop that Ken calls it the AI, we call it the machine, we call it the robot kind of life, where we're just getting up in the morning, going to a job we don't like, so we can pay for the house and pay for the car and pay for the clothes, so we can sleep in our house at night and get up in the morning and go to this non-creative life, and we're living that robot-like life. We're not expanding the field at all. But when we start going into the 21st century superhuman quantum lifestyle and waking up to this amazing beingness that we are, and realizing we can be awake, realizing we have an effect on the world around us, that is the walk of mastery in this world, is to have the awareness of how we're applying our energy. But what's so beautiful is what you guys do with the wind through the trees and pyrokinesis and hydrokinesis and everything I've gotten to play with you with and learn how to do myself. And I haven't been practicing enough, but I love doing it. And it is really teaching me things about how I interface with this reality. So go ahead, Mike.
Well, ultimately, what we do at Evolve Ministry is we're just teaching you common sense and teaching you how to take responsibility for your own soul, because exactly like Cami just said, this is the reason you got to understand that this is the reason why religions such as Christianity do exist, is because what they're doing what the religion does is it goes, okay, instead of this person walking around and having responsibility for their own soul, what we do is we take that away from them. They don't have to worry about that anymore. So all they have to do is believe in this, and then it'll give them the same result as if they were to cultivate themselves. Well, that is a big old lie. Okay, no matter what, you have to be responsible for what's in your head. You have to be responsible and know that if you're having negative thoughts, those thoughts, especially if you are if you're starting to evolve, you have a responsibility to yourself and everyone around you to start really mastering your mind, mastering your soul, and to keep yourself in a love-based position. Because if not, you throwing out even random accidental negative thoughts could end up sabotaging people around you without you having any idea. And so the thing is this is the reason why religions exist in the first place, is the system, and I'm talking about the people who created the system, okay? They knew how powerful mankind was, and this was their way of basically neutering us all, okay? It was their way of going, well, we know that if everyone has the ability to do this, then we have no control over them. But if we make them to the point where they don't understand the responsibility for their own soul, then we can corral all of their energy and then we can run this place. Okay, because that's what they do, is they corral all of that creative energy that would normally be cultivated by that person for that person. They take all of the stuff that the people aren't cultivating, they hoard it for their own, and they use that energy to create this reality and to recreate.
Yeah. So right, Mike. And we talk about the slave species mentality all the time on this show. So it's nothing new. I talk about it every day, everywhere I go. Ken, you were chuckling.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's just, when you talk about religion and how much it's based in control, and what he just said was a perfect way of explaining what we're caught in, is this.
Interesting. You'll have to repeat that, Ken. Repeat it again.
You're totally frozen right now, but I have some comments on what. Oh, here, there he is. You want to finish?
Repeat that, Ken.
You got stuck on control. You didn't even get control out.
Oh yeah, that's what happens. Cary is looks like she's stuck too. Okay. You're stuck in the control-based reality where you're pretty much getting your energy sucked as a battery.
Exactly.
And so we're just trying to break you from your battery terminal, so you stop being used as a battery and become your own power source.
Well, and the slippery slope of all this is, even when you're aware of the energy harvesting that's going on, even when you're aware of your creation potential on a slight scale, we're so deep in the programming in this matrix, in the collective, that it's still easy to get sucked into a story or get sucked into focusing on something. I mean, I know a lot of awake and aware people who understand these concepts and might not have studied them as in depth on the scientific side and on the experiential side as we have, but they understand energy harvesting and they understand how it works, and they still get stuck focusing on the problem. And it's not that you need to ignore what's going on, it's you need to approach it from a direction where you're not a tool for them, because they're using us in every way, shape, and form you can imagine. And even the awake and aware community have become a huge toolbox for them to manifest things from. And so if you're even 51% more focused on the problem, or 51% spinning every story as if the boogeyman's out to get you, you're a fucking tool.
And people say, why are we stuck? Why are we stuck in this movement forward? Why is it taking so long? Why isn't the funding coming through? Why aren't all these amazing projects going forward? It's us. It's our alignment with source. Are we aligning with the knowing that there is ever-flowing creative abundance flowing through us? We got to get the spit wads off the lens of our movie projector. Basically, that's it. We are a movie projector for that source field of unconditional love. And as we begin removing our spit wads, it doesn't mean we can still say, hey, the collective has created, kind of a negative field over there, like the boogeyman in the basement we were talking about earlier. So let's notice it and let's breathe, let's smile, let's align ourselves with love. Let's start envisioning and seeing ourselves in the world as we're choosing it to call forth, abundance flowing through, piles of money for, humanitarian projects to change the course of where this civilization is going, and, support for every single person who's ready to be a light worker or a change agent on the planet. And, these things are within us, and it's our alignment with source. It's our alignment with the knowing that we are one with universal love. And it's a shift. I mean, I talk about this every day. Cami, I love your observations on it. They're just really perfect. And,
well, and I get observations from everybody else's contributions. I mean, the reason we use the Matrix as such a perfect metaphor for what's going on, and even, you go back and watch those movies as many times as you want, and you will pick up more and more based on your level of consciousness development. But it takes, 3 episodes of that movie to get Neo, the one, it's an anagram, to recognize his power to the point where he absolutely refuses, puts his hands up and refuses to participate in the virus, which is Agent Smith. And then it gets to the point where he can actually transfer those skills in the Matrix because he believes so deeply in the Matrix that he can do these things, that he can transfer them outside of the Matrix in his physical reality. And so, it's just the perfect metaphor, as is Star Wars, as is Avatar. As is things going on in Hollywood right now. They're showing us it's all breadcrumbs, people.
It's true. I didn't even realize until really recently that Neo was an anagram for one. Yeah. And
we're all Neos trying to learn how to just not even participate. Just put your hand up, and we're not all there yet. I catch myself falling asleep occasionally too, and I'm like, wow, I just went into that story for about an hour. I can't believe that.
Yeah, people can also check out the Animatrix. There's some good stuff in the Animatrix series, and it's, I believe, a 9-part series. It's one DVD, but it has 9 stories in it.
It's much better too.
Yeah, it gives a good background. It kind of, it's a real good watch. Mike turned me on to that. So
there's so much crazy stuff coming out in Hollywood right now. I was telling Cary and Ken about this movie Frequencies. I just had all these synchronicities around attracting, and it was literally breaking down the matrix, where people at different frequencies, when they come together, things would start falling out of the sky, or plants would fall if they couldn't stay together for more than a minute before the matrix started crumbling, and trying to figure out how to manipulate these frequencies and what historically has happened in the Renaissance ages and the golden ages to harmonize people back into the same frequency, instead of this person being of high frequency and being very lucky, and this person being of low frequency and being very unlucky. And that's, there's just so much stuff coming out right now. It's so cool to watch all this unravel.
So we've kind of gone down a little side path here. Mike, let's go back to, you started talking, you were explaining to us how it is you can move the wind through the trees, and then we went into the extreme storms and all of that. But let's come back to just the mechanics of how that works, and how is it that you and Ken were able to activate that in yourselves, and how it is that you teach that to us.
Okay, so again, it's like I was saying before, it's a thought-based universe, which is based upon electricity, and everything will react accordingly. So again, if we know that the double slit experiment tells us that that light changes its behavior upon observation, well, if it's changing its behavior, it's changing what it's doing, correct? Okay, and so that's the same thing. Once our minds begin to interact with the things that are around us, if we're in the universal mind, then it's always electricity that's transferring from one point to the next. And all it is how that electricity flows. I eliminated a long time ago for myself a lot of complex things, because there's some people who believe that they have to know every aspect of every last little thing. But in the end, all it is again, energy. Energy has a positive polarity or it has a negative polarity. It either flows freely or it doesn't flow at all, or it's stagnant. And so what I did was I found the best ways to basically open up myself in order to get more harmonious universal frequencies in me. And it entailed getting all of the negative, or the stuff that stops energy from flowing freely, which would be the negative aspects of myself, out. So I started looking at all the things that are
Getting
within
the
my...
spitwads off the movie projector.
There you go. So I decided to start looking at myself and go, what are the things that I have not learned from yet? What are the things in me that makes me a negative person, or makes it to where others don't want to be around me? And then I had to look at myself and say, what is the ideal version of me, and am I it? Once I started getting all of those negative aspects of myself out and started cleaning it all off, that is when energy started flowing freely as opposed to being stagnant. And so then I was able to just reach into the flow. Now, the thing is, when I'm teaching people face to face, Ken will tell you this, I can account for whether you are going to be able to move energy or not. So basically what I will do is I will jack the environment to the point where even if you couldn't move energy before for yourself, in this particular space, you're going to be able to move it quite easily. And so the thing is you have to first put a person in a position where they see that they can do it for themselves, as opposed to looking at this person and going, oh my God, you're special because you've got this. So this is one of the reasons why Ken did this thing with you guys. When you guys showed up, instead of Ken sitting there and going, look at all the wonderful things I can do, the first thing that he did with you guys was show you guys that you could do it too, right? Am I correct? All right.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
And so that is the key to it all, as opposed to sit there and me give you a demonstration of how amazing and incredible I am, because to be quite honest, that's irrelevant. The most important thing a good teacher is going to do is show you right off the bat how amazing and incredible you are. And then from that point, we turn that on, we tune it into tune into all the things that make you who you are. And one of the things that we also do is that we do a psychological thing to where we make you look at yourself. And this is also done through the curriculum. And then you eliminate all those negative things that are preventing the flow within your system. And that's what it all boils down to, is flow, access. Okay. And so once you're able to get that access very freely and you see that you can do it, because that's anytime that a person watches a YouTube video, if they feel that they don't have that ability in themselves, they'll either look at it and two things will happen. They'll go, wow, that guy's amazing, or that guy is a liar. Okay? Because instead of it being an internal thing of them saying, I can do this or I can't do this, they're still pointing at the guy that they see doing it, as opposed to looking internally to figure out whether or not it is within them as well. And that's what I tell everyone. There's nothing special here. This is the same robot that you're using, and everyone on this planet's using. Therefore, there can't be anything special about me if I'm in the same flesh and blood suit that you are. I just know how to use my technology. And so that's the thing, is you teach people how to use the energy, their energetic system, and you teach them how to project it. And then once they get into that idea, it becomes, well, it's just like swimming.
Right. And you're doing it from the heart too, which I think is a really critical aspect. I mean, you're empowering people back into, their natural biological state, but you're making sure that there's a heart coherence coming along with it, which is really important, because in this land of sheeple that we're living in, it would be really, really easy to get sucked into Darth Vader mode and like, oh, I'm a powerful Jedi and look what I can do and don't mess with me or I'll cripple you kind of crap. And so, I mean, I think that aspect of it is what I love most about the work y'all are doing, is that you start from, just focusing on your heart and focusing on your frequency, and everything else becomes like a byproduct of that.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I don't think it could have been actually said better than that. So I would say excellent job with your wording. And as you know, like, wording in of itself is, I hate using this term because it's just such a dumb term, but it's power. If you know how to word things correctly, and, well, just given the fact that everything is frequency, that's one thing that people on this planet have to remember. There's nothing that you do that is not frequency or electrically based. Nothing.
Absolutely. And our thoughts thoughts are what create, and our thoughts are what are dictating our words. And as Michael Rice, who is a really huge student of the ancient Aramaic, who we had on the show a few weeks ago, says you can literally change a civilization with its words. And us understanding how powerful we are, our words are. I was just going to say about you guys demonstrating, the one thing I love about just either being around either one of you and when we're all outside working together is I do get to model that with my neurobiology. I get to go, wow, because I think what we're talking about here are things that people, it's almost non-existent in our society. In the modern society, very, very micro percentage of people get that we have these abilities to move energy, to move things with thought in the world. We're understanding meditation and prayer, but then to go beyond that and literally see the results right in front of us. I think it's such a huge demonstration of this capability we have to literally move the world around us with our thought. And so the fun thing about you guys demonstrating and working with you, like I'd stand next to Ken, for weeks on end, just practicing things so that I could kind of duplicate what he was doing with his physiology and his mental syntax. And I'd kind of absorb some of that. So I'd go, wow. Then I'd start seeing myself being able to do it, because I was like, it's kind of like when we grow up and we learn how to walk and learn how to talk, we don't have somebody demonstrating this to us in our world very much. So that's the benefit of Evolved Ministry, Evolved University. Go, Ken. You're going to say something?
Oh, yes. But you can go ahead and finish what you were saying.
That's all. I was just saying I love the examples. And I think that's the benefit of having Evolved Ministry and Evolved University, because it gives a medium in which people can come and learn together and practice together.
Yeah.
I wanted to throw one thing in there and just add before you go, Ken, is that a lot of people would ask, what's the whole point of even doing psychokinesis in the first place? Well, psychokinesis lets you know that everything is a part of you, that everything that you believe that is external, if you're able to interact with it, then that is a pure demonstration that you are actually intricately a part of it, that you are molecularly and that you are on a cellular level a piece of it. Otherwise, the interaction would not exist.
Yes, and this is a 21st century quantum experience in our world. There's science behind it. It is stepping up to the plate and interacting as an aware quantum 21st century superhuman, as we call it.
Not only is there science behind it, but you say, there's not any really evidence of it in the world, or there hasn't been in the past, but it's really been there all along. It's just been sort of clouded in the distractions of, the Bible does talk about love. It does talk about superhumanism. It talks about all these things. But when you get in a church and listen to the guy on the pulpit, he's not talking about any of that stuff. So you actually have to take your free will and study the religions of the world, and not just the guy on the pulpit. Don't worship the false prophet. The government has PSYOPs programs where they fully unclassified will admit that they're doing these things. If you know a Navy SEAL or an airborne ranger or any of the special ops guys, they're getting training on these things. I mean, it's like, it's out there. We're just not paying attention is what's really going on. So that's why we're going to start playing these videos in our breaks and our shows to help seed in the consciousness what's really possible. Because once that happens, you can't unknow it.
Exactly. And what I was just going to say, and it's funny because, I didn't even have to speak. And Cary knew that I wanted to say something just from the fact that we're together and we're connected like we are in this close group, that she just knew. But I was going to say, it's such an amazing experience when you're out there and you finally realize that you've made the connection and that it's you, that all this around you, and you actually discover that it is you and it's movement. Or you videotape yourself and you look back at the video and notice that every branch was moving just how your hands were moving, or how you were spinning, or whatever was happening. So it's an amazing, amazing experience to get out and connect. And it's so easy to go out. You can just go out and breathe. Just stand by a tree and take a deep breath. Just start breathing in and breathing out and notice what happens. Notice if you start to connect, you'll notice that a connection will happen and it will start to raise the system and it will start to build just from your system alone. Your breathing.
Absolutely.
So,
and just being out in the yard, in the garden, in the summer, in the yard. What do you do in the winter when there's snow out?
I go outside and practice. I mean, I was just outside yesterday for probably about 45 minutes in mid-20s practicing. So, yeah, you just get out and do it, you know. And I go to the water a lot. There's a lot of icebergs now out into the water on Lake Michigan. So I'll hike out onto the icebergs and I'll play with the water out there on the icebergs. So there's lots of good stuff to do. You just got to bundle up. That's it.
Have they not seen the snow tornado video that I did?
Yeah, I've seen it, but that'd be good to show too, you know. Just
I'll send it to you right now.
Okay.
That is a very good video. Yeah, and I'm without a camera right now. I've been doing everything on my phone. So I've been wanting to get some good snow shots because it's so I guess you can really see the energy. It's almost like when I go to the beach and you get the sand movement and you can see the tiny particles of sand moving in the wind. It's that same type of flow. You can see the wind energy. You can see how it moves and flows really well when you can see it in the snow or see it in the sand.
And what's really cool, I think, is that you have to be of a certain frequency to attract people that are going to teach you about these things. And so, you know, there's people that are worried about the collective getting a hold of this information. It's not going to happen like that. It won't happen all at once. You have to be ready. When the student's ready, the teacher will appear, kind of thing. And so, you know, for all of you that are listening and that attracted this show, good on you, because you're doing something right.
That's right. Let me, did you have something else, Ken, you wanted to say?
No, I'm good.
So let's just take a couple of minutes and just talk about, we are all part of an organization that actually Ken and I founded called Global Leadership for Change. And we are connected with a number of people globally. And I think one of the things that we want to offer is that there's so much going on. There's emerging communities around the world. There's people ready and starting projects that are for planetary change. And we are all involved in this at a level that is far more than just, you know, talking about some skills. Our lives are dedicated and committed. This is what we're doing with our lives. And we know many, many other people around the planet who are doing similar. So we're going to share with you a little video clip on Global Leadership for Change and some of our ideas and ideals, how we're focusing on moving forward and supporting the movement of humanitarian projects. Each of us, Mike Grubb, Evolved University, Ken with a women's shelter, Cami and I with various projects have literal proposals into global funding places. And we are all moving ahead in our lives. And we want to encourage and inspire you to get connected, A, with your own abilities, and B, with your own vision, heart, and soul, so that you begin taking steps in your life. We're really at a critical place on the planet right now. And we're at a critical place environmentally, humanitarian-wise. We've got 7 billion brilliant people on the planet who are, you know, I say there's 7 billion geniuses here on the planet. All we need to do is exit this slave species system and be ready to move forward into living heart-centered lives. And what we're capable of doing is turning the course of some challenges that we have that are governmental, environmental, banking, religious, you know, all the challenges on the planet. So we're here to do that together. So grab a couple minutes of inspiration with this little video that we have, and we're close to putting a link up on our website with it, not quite up yet, at 21st Century Superhuman. But we want you to think about joining us in this journey and committing your life to things that really matter for all of us as a human culture globally and for the children of the future.
wanna live my life. I know I wanna live it right. Sometimes you just gotta make a change. I got my soul right on. I got my soul right on. I got my soul right on, and it's grooving strong. I got my soul right on. Eternal's my soul light. Eternal's my soul light. Eternal's my soul light. It's burning bright. Eternal's my soul light.
Bring the revolution!
Revolution come, and it come on the guitar with a bass in the drums. Whoa, feel the revolution come, it come with the new music and sensations. I say. People come together from all around. We got to get the music going with a fresh new sound. We fight for our rights like Mother say. Got to do it every night and every single day. With the rhythm and the groove, let your body move and let your mind unwind, because you got to prove you won't get banned by the government, even though they print. Sweet reggae music coming from my soul. Sweet reggae music gonna come to you whole. Sweet reggae music coming from my soul to you whole. Reggae music gonna come from my soul. Sweet reggae music come to you whole. Sweet reggae music coming from my soul to you whole. Everybody come and ride the bus, get in, sit tight, hold on. You're gonna roll with us, we're gonna take you to another place. We get in and out of space. Inside your mind, hopefully you'll find something real. We wanna make you feel good, make you feel higher. We wanna light a fire to your soul when we roll. Get the big wheels turning and you know that we be burning. So we'll say, oh, 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 when we say, I wanna ride the bus today. Oh, 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 when we say.
Hello there. So that is Global Leadership for Change, and give you a little vision of the kind of things going on the planet, the need that we know is out there, to encourage and inspire you to consider how you can participate, how you can begin making shifts into living more from your heart according to your true visions and dreams. And believe me, this is a dance, it's a dance of mastery in this world as we begin making this choice. Ken, as we know, right? We're all kind of in the midst of this, and Cami and Mike, we are all in it together. We're all here committed to our hearts, committed to the lives that we choose to live, and we deal with, the challenges of making that shift in this world, so that we're on an abundant path and something that can serve us and serve humanity. But we encourage everybody to listen to their own hearts and intuition, and you can catch us at 21stcenturysuperhuman.com, and Cami and Ken are both available for personal consulting and coaching. Mike does that through his work at Evolved Ministry. We have a blog post. We love the CCN network that we're on today, and we have blog posts on their website where you can catch more details on who we are and what we're doing and our other shows. So you guys want to give us some details on the practicality of what people can do in their lives to begin adopting these skills? What are some practices that people can do and begin turning themselves on to their own capability on a daily basis?
Well, I guess Ken and I, either of us could answer that.
Go ahead, Mike.
There's so many. It's incredibly vast what you can do. And for those who do want greater access towards teachings, we have so much stuff to offer. It's www.evolvedministry.com. So if you want to go into the advanced training, and believe me when I say there is plenty that you can learn in the advanced sections that are going to really accent your access. But now, as far as home access and just practicing all by yourself, well, number one, my suggestion is always to get into the act of meditation, of course. And a lot of people believe that they have to meditate on something. Not necessarily. Where I used to start was I would just repeat the word love over and over in my head as I was meditating. Now, when it comes to the practice of meditation, there's certain things like you want to practice breathing. And there's all sorts of different patterns that get all sorts of different effects. So what you're going for, that's entirely up to you. You're going to have to figure out what works for you. Another thing is humming. It's important that you really work with vibration. And that's when you hum, you're working with pitch. Pitch is what? Frequency. Frequency affects everything that is around us, no matter what. If your frequency is going out, it layers into things. And so oftentimes what you'll see me do when I meditate is I'll do humming. What I'm doing when I hum is I tune my environment to my own specific frequency.
That is very cool. And you would put oming kind of in that category with humming.
Sure.
But that's really cool. And I know I get that working with both you and Ken, the buzzing or the humming. And that's interesting that you're doing that in order to tune the environment to your signature.
That's right. And keep in mind that the environment can either accept your signature or it can reject your signature. Okay, so it has a choice just as much as you have a choice. So it is important that if you do interact with your environment, that you are actually a genuinely loving person, because believe me, your environment knows if you're trying to trick it. It really does. Okay, so the other thing is when you tune, you want to be in tune. Okay, so when you're humming and stuff, I would suggest, and you want to hum always to your own, what's most comfortable to you. I would suggest playing with notes and everything so you can see what different notes do according to your own biorhythms. But for the most part, what you're doing there is you're really tuning the environment to your own personal signature. And the more of your own personal signature that you get into the environment, or that the environment accepts from you, the more the environment itself will be customized to your frequency, and then you'll be able to get more out of it. So that's the thing that you want to really play with there.
Ken also talks about when we teach together, when people are doing humming or buzzing, they're finding the tones that seem to go through the bones of their head to vibrate and activate their pineal gland. Do you want to talk about that a little bit, Ken?
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, I mean, the toning and frequency, you can just, by, I guess, raising the pitch of the tone, you can kind of shift where the vibration is going to happen in your face. And you can move that actually to where you're getting a buzzing that's kind of around your head or even in your forehead, and give you a sensation where your third eye is. But with the humming, you can literally, we can buzz the pineal, we can come down and buzz the thyroid, we can move right down, do the thymus. We can use that same sort of buzzing or toning to activate each one of our glands. So there's lots of awesome things you can do with toning, and harmonization is key in meditation and toning to help in the beginning get your mind to focus on that, so that way your monkey mind isn't kind of like focusing on everything else, and it can kind of solely focus on that tone, and as Mike said, harmonize. And
yeah, that's really important. And the other thing Mike was sharing about the breath, and then focusing on like the word love, emptying the mind. And I've been practicing, as we've been talking about, with the Heart Math Institute monitor, which is this little biofeedback device that kind of looks like this, and you have the lights go on. You clip it to your ear or put your finger on it, and it will give you feedback. You want to be in green or blue. It's amazing. And I've been playing with it to discover, when I get into too much thought, it goes red. And so the places I find in my meditation that I can keep it green are when the mind is empty, or I'm giving myself to the source field, to pure love. I'm going out of form into the field. And, every person can play with it and find out. And then I use it when I'm active sometimes too, like if I'm working on the computer or I'm doing yoga, and see what states I'm in and it's really a nice piece. I think every person ought to have one of these, and you can now download an app onto your phone, and you can order from them for about $99. The Heart Math Institute, I'll find them online. You can order the little cord that would go from your ear to the phone. So, and that gives the biofeedback that basically what it's reading is the space between heartbeats. And I find in order to get it really to turn green, I have to open up the top of my head amazingly. I have to let these bones up here relax, because and if you think of the 1,000-petal lotus being the 7th chakra, the opening to the higher chakras, this is it's really interesting to feel that with the feedback of the mechanism. So going into love, going into the source field, just this really simple emptying. And the second I go into thought, it goes back to blue, and too much thought, it goes into red. And so it's about coming out of that. I have to push and make this world happen, instead of I'm going into the flow of the divine one. And I think in a way there's a feminine energy to this. I think it's the feminine and masculine that are coming together, that we're going to be talking about next week on this show, but coming together within us. So we're finding this balancing of energies, of receptive and flowing, to really learn how to operate as creators in this world. Anyway, go ahead, Mike. Those are my kind of 2 bits worth here.
Well, that's actually, an extremely good addition to all of it, really. But yeah, there's also many tools that you can, and it's interesting because when it comes to psychokinesis, the more creative you are, you're going to find with your own tools, the more you're going to really send yourself through the roof in being able to do all this stuff. So for instance, make yourself a psi wheel. Psi wheels are very easy to make. All you have to do is take a piece of paper, you fold it up, take a pen, attach it to it, and then you play with it. And given the fact that you put the energy into making the psi wheel in the first place, creation is something which is absolutely one of the most imperative things to do on this planet. Even if you choose not to work with psychokinesis or anything of the variety, I would suggest doing any form of creation that you can find, whether it be drawing, painting, crocheting. I don't care what it is. Exercise that creative portion of yourself, because that's what you really are. You are a creator in the heart and soul. And so the more you create your own tools, okay, of which to interact with, the more effects you're going to get out of them. So like a psi wheel. Now, another thing that you can purchase, which is, they're called pinwheels. You can get those online. Ken has a particular place in which he recommends to get pinwheels from. I'll let him talk about that here in a few. But I think that those pinwheels are the best pinwheels I've ever bought.
You know what? I have mine. I'll run and get it. But is this kind of what you're talking about, Mike? I just took this piece of paper and folded it. I just cut it so it's, just a little square.
Sure.
And then I'm going to take it and sit it on a pen. Is this kind of what you're talking about?
That's basically what a psi wheel is. And
then so you want to focus on it and get it to move, right?
That's the whole key to it. And so
you go ahead and keep talking, and I'll run and get my pinwheel. I'll be right back.
Okay. All right. And okay, so you can also use pinwheels, just like I was saying, and pinwheels are extremely good to use. They're one of the best dialing tools I've ever used. when it comes to working with energy outside. Now you can actually play with pinwheels inside too, but that's a whole different animal. That's telekinesis versus aerokinesis. Okay, so, but when you're outside and you have a pinwheel, and those are those miniature windmills, just for people. They're like garden windmills. But I tell you what, you can get extremely detailed with those, and they cost anywhere between $5 to $35 to $45 to get a relatively decent one that you can work with. Pretty inexpensive, and the fun lasts forever. I'm sure Ken would 100% agree with that. So there's so many different ways that you can sit and play with things by yourself. You can even just grab a lighter or a pen or a pencil and just try to rotate them or move them. And right there is a perfect example of the pinwheels that I'm talking about. I think the place that we get those is called Mackite, Mackite. And these are I'm not even for sure what those are called. Ken, jump in here, because I'm not even for sure what that's called.
Well, you have the pinwheel, and then you have the windsock, and I think it's called like the triple spinner windsock by Mackite. And it's a company based out of Grand Haven, Michigan. So you can use it. Usually on my wall, I'll post something once in a while. I haven't done it in a while with their company, but yeah, for like Mike said, about 35. I think that one was the sock was 25 or 29, and the pinwheel was like 34 something, 34.99. So, and these
they're
are
directional
tools. And yeah, the directional is key too, because you wanna mess with the direction as well. You have each one of those 3 spinning things that you can alter which way they're going, the speed, stop and start. Really, really effective, as Mike said, in dialing in your energy and honing your aim. Because when you first start out, your energy is chaotic. So in the beginning, it's all about rendering your energy and getting rid of all the chaotic energy you got going on, because you're shooting it everywhere. And you can learn to focus your energy in on this and dial in where you want the ambient, because really in the beginning, you're just connecting with the ambient energy and learning how to locate and direct it. And that's all it is. You're not making this up, the energy's there, and you're just directing and connecting with the ambient energy. So this helps you dial that in. And then, we go up from steps from there, which is engineering, which is quite wild.
It's quite a bit different.
We'll start posting some videos of that in between our shows.
Oh, that would be good, because it would be great that people get to see how the interaction between people and the pinwheels work. And again, not only do you have the 3 rungs that you can play with on the pinwheel, which allows you to really get specific, but you can also, there's a flag on the back of those pinwheels that you can use to literally take it from one direction to the next. And so that teaches you how to direct the literal direction of the wind. The wind will oftentimes, it's a pretty cool little element, and it'll let you work with its directionality, its speed, and you just have to be responsible. And you have to be the type of person, like I said, the environment knows whether you're a loving person or whether you're something else. And so it will make it.
That is really true.
Yeah, I love that. Cary was even saying earlier how, we need to have the training, or, the universe kind of has its own governance system, as Mike was saying. It's like, if you have, negative things going on, or if you are like in not alignment, it knows. I mean, it can see right through you. It can see your energy signature. You can see what your color you are and what your frequency is. And it won't share its energy if you're not in alignment with it. It will not participate.
And
I've seen it shut completely off when someone else came into the mix, where it was like gone. I mean, you'll notice from videos where people will walk by in our videos, and you'll notice it will instantly change when these people will come out of nowhere, and then they'll just walk by and the system will all calm down. And then as soon as they go by and you put your hand up, all right back in.
And let's say everyone is capable of being in loving energy. So all this is, it's another biofeedback system to tell us to clear more, to align more with love, to breathe and smile. It's amazing. It's an amazing mechanism that can teach us how how aligned we are to get a response from our world. It's really, really super cool. And just as anything in life is, the second we feel pain, it is the matrix mirroring to us and old energy we have inside of us that needs to go. So the second we feel pain, fear, sadness, judgment, hostility, or control, when we feel anything like that come up, it's this little point that is saying, hello, still some energies in here. And really, this is just data that has to be cleaned out of our biocomputer. And we talk about that a lot in the 21st Century Superhuman process. And the same thing with doing all of these cool physical response activities with the environment. It just is showing us, open up more to your alignment with your heart and with love in order to get this amazing response.
Absolutely. It's like the most perfect profiling system I've ever seen or witnessed. It makes Google look weak. And Google's pretty good profiling system. It has pretty good predictive measures. I will say this. The system that you're in, whether people want to believe it or not, because a lot of people are like, oh, I hate this world, or I love this. It is a perfectly designed system of which caters to your own preferences and your choices that you make. You make positive choices, it throws positivity to you. You make negative choices, it throws negativity. And it also balances everything out accordingly. And it's not only balancing for you, it's balancing for 7 billion other people, every ant that's on the ground, every single chipmunk that's out there. It balances for all of these thoughts.
And that whole concept that we are all connected. We literally are one. And again, I'll repeat something that is in the book 21st Century Superhuman. It's from a quantum physicist, and it's a concept. You imagine the river flowing. It's kind of like Rumi says, you are the drop and you are the ocean. But if we imagine a river flowing, and the river has eddies and currents, and we each are in the river, we're part of the river. So the river is the source field flowing, but we're like a little eddy. We're focused in on ourself and our life and our ideas and our expression, and there's a whole bunch of other little eddies in the river. And the more we open up to love and to this pure divine being that we are, we end up flowing in that river, more openly and more integrated with the rest of the whole field. But that's how we're one, and it's kind of a neat way to picture it. We're all little eddies in that same river of source.
And so if you get too focused upon yourself and you're just self-serving, then you're never going to experience that wonder of being connected into that massive flowing river that allows you to experience the most beautiful ebbs and flows and turns and changes. Otherwise, you'll just sit there and you're all curled in by yourself and you're just self-serving all the time.
Yeah, so we wouldn't say never, but it's the wake up call. I mean, this field that we live in is the response mechanism telling us either we're aligned with love or we need to get more aligned.
Absolutely. I think that it's pretty much one or the other. There's definitely a world of gray that we have out there, and we can throw in so many things in front of us that we want. But again, like I said, I simplified things for myself a long time ago. It's either I'm in the flow or I'm stagnated.
Right.
End of story. And
your navigation system is simply how you feel. You follow the feeling of bliss, or you follow the feeling of feeling terrible. And some people feed off of that feeling terrible. Cortisol is the strongest addiction on the planet. The stress hormone is the strongest addiction on the planet. And some people don't know how to live their life or function without it. And so, a big obstacle in getting out of your own way is to start recognizing what's driving you. Is it a conscious thing? Is it an unconscious thing? And until you get control of your monkey mind or beta mind, you have to start picking and choosing your thoughts carefully. And that can be daunting at first, but it's as simple as just stepping back, becoming the observer, just like you're in a movie, watching a movie, like, oh, look at these thoughts that are running through my head. That's really interesting. And start picking the ones to play with. So just like you would pick who to play with in a bar or a playground or wherever you go to play, you need to start doing that with yourself and start recognizing where you're sabotaging yourself and where you're feeding yourself and where you're feeding yourself from. Is it from the soul or is it from the ego? And it sounds really complicated, but if you can just focus on the feeling and what feels good and what doesn't feel good, and eventually you'll get into a space where you're feeling so good all the time that when the not feel good stuff comes out, it sticks out like a sore thumb. It's like the thorn in the lion's paw. It starts festering and it becomes even easier to clean up at that point in time.
It's obvious.
Yeah, but everybody wants to feel good. So if you think you're going to accomplish that by, buying a new car or buying a new dress or, whatever, we're talking about a permanent solution here, not a temporary one. So,
stop feeding your ego.
Yeah.
Your stress is feeding your ego.
Yeah, and this meaningless living. I mean, and we're all guilty of it. We all got sucked into this trap. I mean, we're not standing here from a point of judgment. We're trying to show you the way out because we had to do it ourselves. And if you're looking to fill that void inside yourself that's causing you to chase the stress or chase the sex or chase the drugs or chase the whatever, it's meaninglessness. That's what you're trying to fill. And so part of why we showed you the Global Leadership for Change video and asking you to get involved is because it's a simple choice point. You either choose to keep feeding that empty bottomless pit of an abysmal existence, or you start feeding something that matters and that your soul is going to get on board with, because when your soul gets on board and you get connected to that, that's the best high on the planet. That's a natural drug. It's a natural motivator. It's inspiring. It's passionate. It's what you felt like as a child before you got the literal life force beat out of you, either emotionally or, hopefully not physically, but that happened too if you were emotionally resistant to it.
Well, and you got to recognize, people out there have to recognize when they're feeding into it. There's certain people who will only talk to me, or this was a while ago, but I think we all have people like this. Actually, there are certain people who will only talk to you when things are going bad for you.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
people, the minute you say, "Oh man, things are going great. I've had this happen," and blah blah blah, they're off the phone. They're off the phone with you in the next 30 seconds. But if you have some sort of tragedy or you have something to say about someone else, that's when this person is willing to listen to you for the next 3 or 4 hours. They're willing to hear everything negative that you have to say. And you have to realize when you're participating in it and when you're feeding someone else it, and then when you're being fed it yourself.
Yeah, that's not compassion. We've gotten confused about what compassion and empathy are and what boundaries are and what we call it psychic vampirism. And there again,
Right.
We're all speaking from experience here. It's not, it's happened to everybody. Some of us got sucked in a little deeper than others, but we all went through it. And so, yeah, it's a whole new way of living. It's not just a diet. It's a full-on lifestyle adjustment. And you have to put yourself first there for a little while. And the people around you are going to start dropping off.
Oh, yeah.
Confused about what's going on and why all of a sudden you don't want to play in those energies anymore, and why you're getting real short with these stories that they want to tell you. Like, oh, I just realized I got to go. Like, it's like that. So
I would say yes, yes, and more yes. I mean, great overview, Cami. I mean, it is a big step to, take the wake up steps in our lives and to begin meditating, to begin doing practices, to begin choosing friends and a way of thinking and a way of living, eating, sleeping that really calls in our soul. And then, and then changing our life path based on that. I mean, how powerful is that? We're living at this amazing time where the crises on the planet are kind of calling us, saying, you know, what are your, you know, let your great grandchildren or the children of the future speak to you. You know, if you don't have kids, let the children of the future speak to you and say, you know, what did you do with your life when you saw that the world was in crisis? Did you make a choice to step into who you truly were and to connect with your own ability to move this world as a quantum being as you began to wake up to it? And what do your great grandparents or your ancestors say to you that says, go forward, you know, and thrive?
Yeah, I mean, silent consent is how the Holocaust happened. And knowing about something and not doing something about it is the exact same thing as not knowing about it, except you can't convince yourself that you're ignorant anymore. So you're really going to feel bad.
And once you listen to us, you're going to know about it.
and people always want to say, okay, what can I affect in the external? You know, I'm seeing these things going on and I want to affect this world and I want to make a change. Well, you don't do it by external. You do it by internally, by self-mastery, by working on yourself and changing your vibration. And once you change your vibration, then you're going to effectively change the world through the collective.
Yes.
Because what we're doing is we're raising the whole vibration. So it's not like you know, you can start out in your daily life by doing a good deed to say, you know, what did I do that was nice for someone today? Or how did I treat someone as I would treat myself? And you can start right there. And that's how you can effectively start to change yourself in the vibration you're vibrating at. And you will see the environment change around you, effectively changing the world.
Yep, it's being a programmer, not the programmed, as we always say.
Yeah, and as we do that, we begin to be able to hear our own heart again, you know, which is for many has been shut down in this culture, in the AI, in the automatic system, in the robotic kind of culture that we're living in. Even
taking a small step in that direction, your soul is so waiting for you to just take the smallest little step in that direction that it will pick you up and carry you like a tsunami. You just have to, it's baby steps. Just start. You don't have to master your mind overnight. You don't have to get it all sorted out quickly. You just have to, when you notice it, in the moment that you notice it, make that choice, pivot, you know, rewrite, imprint, choose a thought, choose a action, choose, you know, a focus that is serving you, and everything will just fall into place. The flow will find you. And as we do so, we draw new people into our field, people that are our posse, our tribe, our compadres, those who are aligned with our soul essence and our soul energy. And that is really exciting and fun. It is, because you don't have to work at anything anymore. It happens like magic. All you have to do is focus on your frequency and everything just finds you. It's like, it's the most remarkable way to live. For a type A overachieving personality, I can't tell you how refreshing it is just to be able to lay around and be like, I can't wait for that to show up. All I got to do is ask for it, put it out there, and just align. That's it. That's all I got to do. Mike, you have a couple of closing thoughts for the soul journey?
Sure. My closing thoughts is that the space of love is a lot easier than we typically think it is. And I've heard a lot of people, and for some reason, love seems to be one of the most elusive things because everyone typically relates it to the romantic sort of thing. When I say the word love to most people, they're thinking in terms of romance. It's like, no, wait. Do you love your mother in a romantic way? Absolutely not. The way you love your mother is the way you should love every single human being on this planet. And it's a lot easier. All you have to do is practice it and understand the idea that you would want. For me personally, it was very easy to say, I want to give out the same love that I would expect someone to give to me. Okay. I don't want to be treated negatively. I don't want to think negative thoughts about anyone else. Therefore, if this is the case, then maybe I should turn around and make my own behaviors conducive in a way that I treat people in the way that I know that I would expect to be treated. It's a very easy thing. And evolution, your soul evolution, is also equally as easy. You can put a lot of things ahead of you and make it as hard as you want. You can make it as complex as you want. You can go the religion path and sit there and twirl yourself in circles. But in the end, even Jesus stated it's a thing where you have to do it yourself. You have to bring yourself to the Father, if there was ever such a thing, and then love everyone equally. That was his biggest thing, was to say that love is what's going to heal us all and connect us into these things that make us superhuman. If the dude was walking on water, if the dude was actually changing water into wine and doing all this other stuff, yet his biggest thing that he was talking about was love, then it would be very simple to me to go, well, I think the reason why he was able to do all those things is because he was actually living the creed of love.
Mike, thank you so much. And we love hearing this from a man. Great stuff. And we'll see you on our show next week on our Sunday night 21st Century Superhuman show.
All righty.
Thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for
Love
coming.
you.
See you soon. Love you too.
Lots of
Take
love,
care.
everybody.